How has I guess so? We're live. We got two viewers.
Cool.
We're just kind of gonna roll
Hello.
with it. And I guess like from I definitely want to learn more about your background. How has like the Discord kind of like helped or like changed your interaction with like fandom though? Because like I feel like that's like the newest hot topic of like, do I have a Discord? Do I do it with other people? Do I do it by myself? Like, is it a time sync? Like that's something that I deal with a lot from like artists. So I'm curious from like your take as the artist.
Yeah, it's something I held off doing for a while just because I didn't feel like I had enough collectors to warrant it for a long time. It can be a distraction. I've seen certain artists that are have like very active discords. I see mine as a little more passive. Like people chat and I respond on a regular basis, but like I don't try to like hype up the Discord and get like people talking all day because there's so many other Discords that are better for that. And I see mine as kind of a hub for talking about what I'm working on or like what I'm collecting or stuff like that. But I don't see it as something that like you have to be in all the time. I prefer it to be more passive and people just kind of come and go as they please.
Yeah. I feel like something that like I've been noticing a lot is like a lot of artists feel very tied down based on like their conversations with their collector base. And so if something was like a part of the game plan for like months and then it's not quite possible or like something new comes out and maybe they want to try it, they're like, oh, they're gonna get mad at me and like then I don't really want to do it. And so like you're very beholden to like something that you like casually or flippantly like agree to, and then all of a sudden like they're on you like a pack of hyenas as soon as you want to like change one thing or another.
Yeah, I think that certainly can be the case with certain like roadmaps and artists that release these kind of like 10,000 piece projects that they have to then like treat it like a business essentially, and they rightly should. They can be kind of stuck within a path that's predetermined by 10,000 or not 10,000, it's usually like 1 to 5,000 collectors that are all invested in this path and they want you to go down that path with them. That's one of the reasons why I've kind of held off doing, these 10,000 things because I one, uh, it scares me to be stuck servicing one project for the next 10 years versus just creating art as I want and kind of having fun and experimenting. Um, so that's kind of fallen into that category. And I think most of my collectors are very chill, very nice people. I've never really had any negative feedback on what I'm doing. Um, but I think it just comes with the territory of once you reach a certain level and there's a certain amount of uh, money and people invested in you, you're going to have to start making sure that you're thinking about them just as much as you think about yourself.
Yeah. Do you think that like your style like I find your artwork to be like very like fun and like light and just I don't know like it just has like a very like fun aspect to it. And so do you think that like your style of art brings in like a certain collector that's like not gonna be I don't know for lack of like a better word like more of like a hard ass about things? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean, and I think you're spot on that my art, because it's more fun and relaxing and wholesome to a degree, it brings in that kind of collector. I've seen discords for collectors that are a little more aggressive with their art, and it brings out more aggressive community members because they play up that mentality, like there's crypto fuck yous, or crypto rugs WTF, and their whole persona is built on this overly aggressive persona, and so that breeds a community that wants to play into that because it's fun to release your energy in that way. So I definitely say I've seen that be the case.
Yeah. I mean, I find it hilarious, and they're very like they own it, and so does he. So I'll just talk about it. But like Dot Pigeon's collector base is so feisty, and I just like I love it. Like I went
Yeah,
in, and they're like, we all got banned, and I'm like, what do you mean you all got banned? It's like we're not meant for society, and it's like, what do you mean you're not meant for society? I'm kind of an asshole, and like that was like the like line of questioning, and I was just like, huh? Like and like Dot Pigeon's just like, yeah, like some of them are kind of a lot, but like they own it, and like it's just like great because they're super about it and like they understand, but at the same time like they own up to it. Like it's not like they're pretending to be something that they're not, or in this persona something that they're not. Like they're just like, I'm not meant for that place. Like, and it was
Yeah,
just
no,
like so casual. It was I found it hilarious.
totally. And I love Don Pigeon's work. I have a piece or two of his. And I think, yeah, that's again, it's a community that gets to role play to a degree. I think some people probably take it too seriously. But in my mind, those are like, it's like you're in a Grand Theft Auto, it's like Dot Pigeon's world is like Grand Theft Auto, where it's like, I'm going to go break into this house and steal a bunch of stuff and fuck shit up. And you can all come with me and be a part of this fun.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So I guess we'll kind of go back to like level one, thinking about you as like an artist and stuff like that. But like, do you want to talk like a little bit more about like how you got started? Like, how did you decide to actually become an artist? And like, definitely some of like the bigger achievements that you've had.
Sure. Yeah. Going back, I've always been a fan of doing art, but I think I started to get more. The path that led me here probably started when I was in high school. I was making flash cartoons for a website called Newgrounds, which was you'd make these like silly, crass cartoons, you'd upload them, and people would comment and they'd rate them. And if you did well, you got put on the leaderboard of this week's silly cartoons. Um, Through that and hearing that feedback, people reaching out and being like, "Hey, I like what you're doing," um, that made me go, "Well, maybe I should pursue this," because I was kind of aiming to go to college for like graphic design, and then I kind of veered into the animation category. Um, I went to college in Philadelphia at the University of the Arts for traditional animation. So I learned how to do the hand drawn. I learned how to do experimental stuff. They kind of teach you the hard way first. So you had to like go shoot stuff on like 35 millimeter, like camera stands and stuff. Um, After that, I kind of came to New York, worked in a bunch of different kind of industries, whether it's fashion advertisement or toy commercials, um, business, like motion design type of work. But then also working on some like animated series like The Life and Times of Tim or MTV's Guy Code or Girl Code, doing like music videos for bands or Sesame Street. I kind of did that for quite a few years to kind of just build up skills and find work where I could get it. After a certain amount of time, I started working at the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. I worked there for 8 years. I worked at SNL for like 5 or 6 years, doing motion graphics, visual effects, whatever the day brings. Those type of jobs. You go in, you see the news. They go, can you make this? Can you make this Photoshop? Can you make this video manipulation? Can you do these titles and graphics? And then it airs or it gets cut, and then you start fresh the next day. And so I did that for quite a while. I worked on like some like 1,700 episodes of it. And then, cut to a few months ago, like in April, I left to do NFTs full time. And now I'm all in on this NFT stuff because I've been doing NFTs now for about 20 months. I started at the beginning of 2020. And during that time, I started at Super Rare, went over and put out editions on like Rarible. I did Nifty Gateway. I did art blocks. I did async music. I love playing with all the different platforms, all the different ways you can make NFTs. And so at a certain point, NFTs started to get bigger than I anticipated. And I was like, well, I gotta, this seems like a moment, and it'd be foolish for me to not to put all my energy into it. And so that was kind of what led me to being here and talking to you now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely been like quite a run. I mean, it's awesome for you to like have been in it so early, because like I feel like it was something that I was talking about like in like the tail end of like the last run up in like March, give or take, where it was just like there's going to be an issue with people like actually like finding traction, right? And like
Hmm.
it was so much easier as like an early adopter as like yourself than like it is right now to like even just get noticed or like heard, like it there's just so much going on. And then now even more so, right? Like March was like one thing because it was like pure NFTs, and now it's like profile pictures, it's the peeps, it's the other toad thing, and then
Yeah.
a million drops a minute. And so I feel like there's so many like great artists that are kind of like just struggling, like it's hard to watch because like I feel bad. Like I've talked to a lot of them and they're just like, I don't know what to do, and I'm like, I don't either. Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, no, I agree with that. But I also think it, even starting now compared to where I started, I mean, I found sales early on, but I was only putting out one of one piece every 2 weeks or so on super rare for the first like 9 months. And I was really doing it slowly. I was doing a lot of promotion, a lot of building up, a lot of connections, um, joining all of these discords and virtual meetups, and is trying to really become a part of the space. And even then it still took like 9 months of pounding the pavement daily to get to a point where things started to pick up. And I think a lot of people join the space and they want to see that instant success. And that happens for some people. And it creates this path that is not always attainable. But I find, it's all about persisting, continuing to build, showing that you're creating something bigger and you're in it for the long haul. And then people over time will start to notice you, start to follow you, and it picks up. But I definitely see a lot of people get discouraged because they think it's this like flash in the pan moment, and if they don't strike it right now, it's going to be over. But this is a long term. This is a new career path and a new medium to create for.
Yeah, it definitely feels like this like pivot where like I was talking about it with my buddy who like he's trying to get into the space, and I'm just like try to work for Nifty. Like I personally like I whatever, like I love it, right? Like I don't want to sell other people on it. I understand, people's got have their own loves of different things. But like right now, like Nifty to me is like almost like Goldman Sachs, where it's just like if you can like for you as an artist drop on Nifty Gateway, and for me working, like you're set to be able to, so long as you don't shank yourself terribly, be able to like get work, forever,
Yeah.
because like that it's just such a resume booster, and like it's the same thing with like getting on Super Rare and like the bigger sites. Like once you're not just like trying to distinguish yourself from like everything happening on OpenSea, like it's just such a boon. But like you're saying, right? Like it's just that like nice, steady, consistent. Do you think if you had to start right now, like do you think your game plan would be like the same? Do you think you pivot anything at all? Like I feel like it's weird because
Hmm.
Twitter Spaces are kind of blowing up, but then Clubhouse
Yeah.
is kind of dead.
If I had to start again, like right now from scratch, if I was just trying now, I would probably aim for putting out like Tezos Hickok drops, because you can build up a collector base quickly there. It doesn't cost a lot to mint and get on there. When I started on Super Rare, I was paying like a couple dollars to mint an NFT. Now, if you're going to go mint on Ethereum, you have to pay hundreds of dollars. And so I don't know if that's like the path for new artists right now. I think it's better to like integrate into the system via these like cheaper routes, build yourself up, and then once you reach a certain point, then you can kind of like parlay over into the Ethereum sites. Because that's the risk as an artist, is whether your stuff will connect with people and sell. And it's better to not dig yourself into an instant hole with all these gas fees and all that other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I had minted like one thing like a while ago. It was more of like a joke, and yeah, it was like $80. It wasn't real art. It was entirely like a joke thing of a quote from the Nifty Gateway Discord. But that yeah, a little bit different. But so
Yeah.
I definitely see like because like that's ran on Tezos, right? And then like now Solana is really blowing up. Like do you
Yeah.
drop on either of those as well? Like do you do that concurrently with
I
like
haven't yet. No, I mean, I did a drop on Flow blockchain a month or two ago on Versus, which is a cool platform.
mm,
So I'm not against any specific chains. I mostly haven't. I'll probably do Hickok eventually. I just haven't really figured out what I would do for it yet, and I usually look at platforms as like what is the best way to utilize this platform versus all these other ones I'm on. Because if otherwise, if you go on every single platform, then you're just spreading yourself too thin. But I do see the potential there with Sol. Um, I have some Solana tokens, and I've set up a wallet, but I don't even know what to buy or where to go on that blockchain yet. Like, is there an NFT marketplace yet? Like, I'm very uneducated into how to use that still.
yeah, I don't know how to mint on Solana. Like Rarible just made it super easy of like mint here, and I was like,
Yeah.
all right, I could do that, right? Um,
Yeah.
I do just for people watching and yourself. Like I lost a like large sum of money on Solana, because when you connect with a MetaMask wallet, it tells you all the permissions that you're giving, right? And so it's not, here, take my money and look at the wallet. Now, when you do it on Solana and you connect the wallet, there's a chance, and this happens a lot, where you connect your wallet and they just take X amount of money from it, right? Like, it's basically like clicking the mint button, but it's not the mint button. It's just connect wallet. And I lost like a large sum of money because like I have a group of guys who, like something drops and it's like, oh, go, go, go. And, we've added some like new guys to it. And he dropped the link. And then the next post that he put was, I keep getting these spam messages. And I just saw the first post and I was like, all right, let me just, go to the site. I click open on the site. I'm like, all right, connect wallet. I'll see how much it costs. And then I'm like, what the hell? Like, what? Like, and it just transferred money out. And I was like, all right, well, that's gone. It's
Oh
just gone.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
So,
Okay. Well, that's good to good to know.
yes.
I haven't attempted to connect the wall. There was like one drop that I saw. I think it was maybe the gorillas or something, but it was already sold out by the time I got around to transferring over anything. But I do see. I'm a firm believer that like large scale profile picture projects or like 10,000 edition things should be on um, side chains or layer two, whether it's Matic or Sol or Wax, or it seems like games and collectibles should be created for those type of platforms so that it's easier for people to trade and collect and have fun with them. And I think Ethereum, it's getting totally clogged with transactions right now. You're seeing every time that happens, when you start to see gas go crazy, you start to see the market kind of dip a little bit. The same thing happened in like March, and we're seeing it again right now. And eventually it'll dip back down to where it's more affordable, and then it'll go back up, I'm sure. But I think people are like, well, am I really going to spend $150 to just pay for something that's like $10?
Yeah.
Understandably. So I think we're going to start. I'm surprised more haven't done it. I've seen some like the visitors did it on Matic. A project I was a part of called Artvatars was one of the first profile picture projects that was done on Matic. And you're starting to see this past week or so, you're starting to see that start to tick up because people are starting to notice it. So it's definitely something I think builders should consider as they're thinking about if it's under 1,000, whatever. But I think if you're going to shoot for these like 10,000, 25,000 projects, you should really consider it.
Yeah, and the Matic Mint, I was listening to a podcast today. I think it was Bankless, and they were saying that like you can mint on Matic, and then it automatically like ports straight into Ethereum. Like there's basically like you can mint it there for way cheaper, and then like on OpenSea, it's basically listed the exact same way where it shows up as like an Ethereum token essentially.
Yeah. I've done wearables for Decentraland and crypto voxels that are on Matic, and it's like I can mint it and ship it to somebody for pennies. It's amazing. I think that's where it's at. Some people will argue it's not as good of a chain for on chain or whatever, and they're probably correct. But when it comes to these kind of like collectible, silly, fun things, I don't think people need to take it as seriously in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so I'm really curious. Like you're probably just from that little snippet, right? Like one of the most crypto aware artists. Like were you into crypto before? Have you like learned it on the fly as you've gone? Like what's the background there?
Oh, I learned it by diving in. I found out about NFTs. I mean, I'd known about CryptoKitties and NFTs and crypto to a passing degree. But when I think it was maybe December 2019, an artist I collect and follow named Killer Acid was posting his stuff that was on Super Rare. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like he's selling his GIFs or GIFs, depending on how you feel about it, on this thing. And I was like, I don't understand what Ethereum is. Never heard of it. What is that symbol? How are people paying for this? What are they buying? I went through that same like that step process that everyone goes through. It's like, well, why would someone pay for that? And I spent like a week or two kind of researching the space, trying to understand that there wasn't as much information around back then. And I made an application to Super Rare and I sent them the stuff. And I got on, and through that, I set up my MetaMask wallet. I figured out Coinbase and figuring out all this stuff. And then through that process, I just became more and more aware. One of my first collector is a guy named Jimmy, who's a builder in the space. And through him, I learned a lot because he was constantly posting all this detailed technical information about how things work or should work. And just I became educated by following all these influential people on Twitter, whether it was Art Gnome or Matt Cain or Sarah Zucker, all these artists that came before me that kind of explained it. Then you go into Discords, you can ask questions or in DMs and stuff. And so now I think it's a lot easier for an artist to get involved because you can kind of figure it out. But it was a lot of trial and error. I definitely lost a few pieces of art to like not understanding how to transfer files early on.
Yeah. So your early collector, Jimmy, is that Jimmy.eth? Jimmy1.eth?
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a lot of respect for that guy. Yeah. He always
Yeah.
has some hot takes that I'm a big fan of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was early on, he did art guitars and he was kind of educated me about what on-chain art was, which influenced me to create an art blocks project because I was really excited about on-chain and doing something on-chain. And so, yeah, I think we learn a lot from these OGs that are builders in space because they had like 3-year head start on everyone else.
Yeah. I recently met this guy who's a 20-year-old kid, and he got into Solana at $6, and he has like a pinned tweet of like, I will retire when it hits like $150, and it just hit like 160. And I'm just like, why was I so dumb at 20? I'm still dumb, but like less so, you know what I mean? And like, why
Yeah.
was I like that dumb at 20? Like, why couldn't I be really just that guy? You know, like it's just, yeah, it's definitely awesome to like meet people that are super ingrained. Like, I love crypto because it's like it embraces like like the nerd and the geek, and like those guys are like revered, right? Like, and without like a profile picture, like it could be anybody, right? Like, period. Could be male, female, like your profile could be, androgynous, it could be female, like whatever. But the respect is given to like pure just talent or knowledge or whatever expertise. And so I love that aspect about the entire community.
Yeah. I mean, I think I learned about Solana via Kevin Rose. He had tweeted about it like in July and he was like, this is where it's at. And so I just picked up like, I don't remember how much it cost at the time, but I bought like $1,000 or $2,000 worth. Which in retrospect, I should have bought a lot more. But, at the time I'm like, well, he seems to know what he's talking about. So I'll give it a try. And yeah, I still don't fully understand how NFTs will work on it, but it certainly seems like people are building for it. And that's a big first step.
Yeah, so I listened to like a lot of podcasts, and I started like biking a lot. So last night, coincidentally, I was biking in like I bike for like 3-4 hours, and so like I cram in like a lot of podcasts at 2x speed. So there's another one, Modern Finance, and he interviewed the guy who started Solana, and that podcast is amazing. And they're gonna port in like all of the smart contract capability from Ethereum into Solana, and so it's basically it feels like it's going to end up being like a layer 2 solution or like a partial layer 2 solution in and of itself for Ethereum, just because if you can run all the same smart contracts and it's a lot faster, it's a little less secure, but it's a trade-off. And for singular pieces of art, I mean, like, you're not transferring millions of dollars, well, typically, right?
Yeah.
Typically.
Does that mean it's running on Solidity then?
Yes, like it can actually like read the Solidity contract. Yeah. So I don't think Solana actually runs on Solidity, but I guess it can like I'm
Wraps it up or something.
Yeah, like I said, I'm less dumb, but I'm still dumb, and that's one of those.
I mean, like you were very kind to say that I understand a lot of the space, and I understand a lot of it, but when it comes to the technical stuff, like I can't write my own smart contract or anything like that. I'm not a programmer to a large degree. I used to code websites and stuff, but like this is all very far beyond my understanding still.
Do you think that you'll try and like learn it just so that way you can deploy on your own smart contract?
I think I'd rather just work with someone to help me write a smart contract because at this point, it's you have to pick and choose your battles, and I think like learning deep level programming skills is probably a departure from where my skill set should be at.
Understandable. Yeah, I gave it like a mental debate, and I was like, that's gonna be a lot of time, and I don't know. I got a wedding in October, and I need to learn Chinese for it a little bit because my fiance's Chinese, and so yeah, like
That's a good thing to learn. Yeah,
yeah,
that has multiple use
yes,
case.
yes,
Um, but yeah, I think my assumption is in the next like 3 months, there's going to be a handful of sites that, and I know Super Rare's already announced it. Jimmy's building Nameless, which just did does Brian's drop and Gary V's drop. There's going to be a lot of these boutique smart contract creating websites that make that an automated process for artists. So I'm just being patient in that sense.
Mhm. So from like your aspect of like an artist, and I mean, both of us not being fully technically savvy, that's obviously like a huge boon to people. But like, what else are you like really excited about that is coming soon or in the further out future?
That's a good question. The things that I think about a lot in the space is where we as let's how do I say this? I don't want to use the word metaverse because that's too open ended, but I do think about like the spaces we live in and how we'll augment them, whether with AR glasses or VR glasses. I I'm a firm believer that almost all the NFTs we are making are just decorations for our future virtual homes. And when we want to have a meeting, we'll invite everyone into our virtual space that'll have your art blocks Fidenza on the wall or some other thing that you can flex while you're having a business meeting. And uh, whether you're playing a video game or all these other things, I think these are all assets for this future virtual world. So I'm really into gaming, really into virtual worlds like Crypto Voxels, Decentraland, uh, the other ones that are coming soon. And virtual fashion, I think, is a huge untapped part of it. That's why I'm really into making wearables for various things, because you see how important uh, profile pictures are to people and identities of the face. Um, I imagine if we're going to be in a virtual world, we're going to want different outfits on different days, and that's going to become even more crucial to how we present ourselves, not just as a profile picture, but as a full body. And I think that's going to be a huge part of what's to come.
I gotta pitch Supreme on this. I feel like
Yeah.
Supreme is like one of those. They're People argue that they're dead every year, and every year people are still just as excited about the box logo or whatever they're coming out with, and like yeah, I mean that Kanye, I'm sure Kanye would drive like a ton of hype. Jordans, I come from not come from, but I have a huge love from like a streetwear standpoint and like
Oh
just
yeah.
like hype beast clothing, and so yeah, like that them entering the space will be a rocket ship to be perfectly honest, like easy
Well,
350s.
yeah. I think a lot of the space is built around the same mechanisms that like hype drops of sneakers and Supreme created, where people line up, they try and get early, and then they flip it on the secondary really fast. It's all kind of built in that same world. Um, and yeah, I think we're already seeing a lot of high end fashion like Dolce and Gabbana stuff getting into NFTs. Um, it's just a matter of time. I mean, you got the hundreds drop with the bombs. Uh, I know those tie into physical shirts. I assume the roadmap will have them be virtual shirts too. That just makes sense to me. But that's where I see this kind of stuff going, is like having that ability to flex, because a lot of NFTs to a large degree is kind of the show and tell aspect where you're like, hey, look what I own. What do you think? And so that's all that's all part of what I see as the roadmap of NFTs.
Yeah, there was I another podcast reference, but there was a podcast that I was listening to that compared the explosion of like the mercantile class in I don't know like the 1600s, right? Like right before like the Renaissance period, and then that actually driving the Renaissance period. And like if you think about it, this is like another like Renaissance period, and in that period they completely changed like the art world, right? Like it went from basically what you know as the Renaissance period came about, right? Like that entire art period. And so now like I don't look at like a Monet or any of that and go, "Oh, I really want to have that on the wall." Like personally, I just
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
I don't know about you, but like this to me, like your artwork and like a lot of what's coming out, like I would feel really proud showing it, and it connects with me. Like I'm happy with it as a background screen. Like I don't want a Monet as my background screen for my computer or my phone. Like I would want your
Yeah.
artwork or something similar. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I mean, there's definitely styles that are historically relevant that don't necessarily, they're not modern. Um, and I think a lot of what we see in the space is very modern in a fun way. And I mean, that's like where I like my, when I go to an art museum, I veer into the 1900s and later. I'm not a big fan of like religious art or anything like that. I understand why it's beautiful. I understand the technical skill behind it, but yeah, I'm not going to hang uh, a Michelangelo print in my house. I'll go buy a screen print of like a Mondo movie poster I like. Um, so I think that falls into that category of, you know, what creating stuff that connects with people, and then also the communities of this. I mean, you look at some of the biggest artists in the space, and they have really strong communities of everyone that are rooting for them, and also just connect with the art on a deeper level. And
Yeah.
I think that's because we're living artists that we can create that connection. It's hard to have a connection with Michelangelo, who was like paid by the Vatican or something to like build or paint a painting for 2 years.
Yeah. I so Salam 9000, hopefully pronouncing that correctly, is saying that like there's no like one style across like the digital style, which is definitely true as far as like a, I don't know, like a critique, but like I think it's more like the means and like what you can accomplish, where like the, I don't know, like there's really nobody. I guess Trevor Jones is kind of still doing like a lot of like, or more similar to like a Renaissance style painting, but
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
even then, like the Bitcoin Angel, and like I mean, I was really like hopeful that I would win that Conor McGregor piece. I'm a huge MMA guy, so like it would just be awesome. But like Conor
It's
McGregor
okay.
in Ren,
I didn't
yeah,
win either. Don't worry. Um,
yeah,
no, I agree. Trevor's a good example of bridging the two, because even though he's doing these really kind of historical pieces, he's putting a lot of modern imagery in them, and he's augmenting them with AR and doing some really cool stuff that you couldn't do before. So I think he's a good, him and like Sarah Zucker are two examples of people that are taking kind of old styles and bridging them with the new world in really awesome ways.
yeah, yeah. No, like I have like a ton of respect for the both of them. I can't do any art, so that's an easy thing there. I'm curious, like for you, like because you did like the art blocks drop and then like the other platforms, like mainly the comparison between like art blocks and then dropping with like Nifty Gateway or Maker's Place and stuff like that. Like, what's the differences there? Like pros, cons, things that you like, dislike.
Hmm. Um, I like them all. I think Art Blocks is turned into a whole new beast. When I did my drop, I was like, I think the ninth drop. And so it was very early on. And when I did it, it was a lot of education and explaining to people what Art Blocks was, why I thought it was important, why I thought it was interesting. It had a hardcore fan base of like on-chain maxis that were into it, but like, yeah, a lot of people didn't understand. And so that was a difficult drop in that sense. It was successful and it did great, but it also like took like half a year before people fully like had it click and they kind of understood what was going on. And it took a bunch more art blocks to kind of give people that education. Um, Now I think art blocks rides this middle line between the fine art world and the collectible world. And that is this large scale project, and each drop then creates its own mini community, similar to what we are talking about with like, a dot pigeon or Kid 8 doing a 10,000 piece drop. I think, you get these communities around these projects, and that creates its own secondary lifespan where as an artist you put the art in the world, and then the community keeps growing it, whether they put it into other things. When I did my art blocks drop a few months later, I was working on SNL, and I was able to put my Nimbuds into the NFT SNL sketch and like kind of further its like lifespan to a degree. And so there's interesting ways that you can do that. And the same idea goes for Nifty Gateway, where in my mind, Nifty Gateway is a platform that allows you to experiment with the release and how you create your drop and what you do with it is its own art form. Like so many different artists have released so many different style of drops on that site in the past year. It's an experimental drop platform, and it also has a lot of on ramps for people that are new to the space. But in the same way that like you see Trevor Jones drops the Angel, and then that leads to a raffle for the Conor McGregor, and then also a ticket to this like castle party he's going to throw down the road. Like you see the same idea of like these big, especially with the Nifty Gateway, like the open editions and these bigger open editions, they create these like secondary lifespans that are fun to kind of like watch and grow, and you can kind of play with values and what creates what. I think we were talking earlier about like artists being fearful about a drop not doing well. In my mind, this space alleviates that from ever happening, because if you have a drop that doesn't do well, you can fix it down the road by creating more value and bringing it to what you did in the past.
Yeah, like I can't imagine like putting together like an art box drop because I've never done it. But like the Nifty, like I I love having like a nice mixture of like pieces for people and like being able to like tap into like different groups and like pricing things so that way people feel like they had like a win. Yeah, I mean, dude, some of the open editions that have happened in like the past like 2 months, let alone like way back, like it's just insanity. Like I worked like with Jose Delbo for like his AP mode drop, and like that was like
Oh,
thirteen
nice.
hundred pieces, and I was just like sitting there, and I'm like, what the hell is going on right now? Like
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I mean, that's the beauty of Nifty Gateway is that I put something on super rare, only one person can buy it. It's hard to get. With Nifty Gateway, you're allowing a bunch of people to participate, collect at a cheaper rate, and that's why even before I dropped on it, I was collecting on it because I was like, oh, cool, I can own a Josie piece or I could own a Coldy piece. I couldn't afford them on super rare, so I think there's a lot of cool ways that all these different platforms and marketplaces can all be used differently by artists to create different uh, tiers, I guess. In my mind, I always look at like art releases in different tiers. Like there's the one of ones, there's the small editions, there's kind of like these art blocks, and then there's the big collectibles or wearables or giveaways, and it's kind of this like the amount of quantity and price is a big pyramid. Even though I shouldn't use the word pyramid and crypto in any fashion.
it's not a Ponzi scheme.
No, it's not. No, it's just a pricing structure.
It's a reverse funnel.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had anybody who got caught up into those like MLM scams back in the day, Amway.
Mm-mm.
And no, oh man,
I've heard about them, but like I said, I only got into crypto via this NFT stuff. So like I've learned about the ICOs and all these other things that have scared people off. But hopefully I don't get caught into too many of them. I mean, I've certainly bought into some NFT drops that went to nothing. So I guess I have.
yeah. That's part of the. Well, it's not part of the fun, but it is part of the learning experience. It's a very expensive lesson. My dad is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always find, I only feel guilty if I'm wasting my money on some anonymous person. If I buy an artist piece and I'm funding an artist growing and making money off their art, I don't care if it goes to zero, because I know the other person on the end of that is benefiting. It's when I feel bad when I buy into these like 10K projects by anonymous people and then it goes to zero, because I'm like, who did I even enrich?
Mm-hmm. I like, so there was always like are they gonna rug? They're gonna run away with the money. It's like you would make so much more money if you just did the right. Like, okay, could you do one drop and make whatever it is? I don't know, $1 million or $2 million, or do you do Bored Ape Yacht Club and you stick around and now you're still around, whatever, 7 months later, and you make so much more money. And it's like this is kind of like an easy equation. Like if you just do the right thing, people are already hyped about your project if it's selling out. To run away with it is like, but you could do stuff and then make more money. Like that just makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's the long-term roadmap. That's why I was saying you got to treat it like a business. Like once you start this business, you can't just like cut loose and move on. You have to really nurture it and grow it over time. It becomes in all hopes, a lifelong journey if you're going to create a giant project with millions of dollars invested in it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. So for you, like, how do you plan out like a drop? How do you plan, like, what's your like day to day life like?
Um, well, at the moment, I'm working on my next Nifty Gateway drop. For that, I experiment and I create a bunch of different styles and ideas, and then I present like, hey, here's 4 different directions I could go into the producers at Nifty Gateway, and they go, okay, I like that one and that one. I go, okay, I'm gonna flesh out that one more, and then I'll probably save those other things for some other drop, or I'll keep working on them. But like a lot of what I do is kind of taking building upon what I've done in the past, seeing how I can keep pushing it forward without kind of repeating myself. Um, a lot of what I did when I joined the space, because I was doing um, gallery shows prior to NFTs. Um, but when I joined the space, I kind of wanted to start fresh, and kind of use it as an experimental like place to like do new techniques, try new things. And so when I joined the space, I made an effort to not stick to one style, but to use the same color schemes, which are like these color swatches you see behind me. Um, because I was always told, like, if you want to be in galleries, you got to do the same style over and over, because when they put you in a show, they want you to do what you're famous for, because that's what sells. And I always thought that was like the antithesis of creative evolution. Um, and so I kind of went into this and I was like, well, I want to do 2D animation. I want to do 3D. I want to do generative. I want to do experimental. As long as I can use those colors, I can get away with changing my style around all the time, but it'll all kind of live within the same fun vibe. And so that kind of plays into what I do. And so usually what I'm messing around with is I start with a concept, whether it's thinking about the space, like this piece that I put on Super Rare recently. This was me reflecting on my Nimbud project on Art Blocks, where I made some generative faces, and then I brought them into the color scheme, and then I thought it reminded me of like what Damien Hirst was doing with his dots, and so then I created this like animated thing. And so it's a lot of my Super Rare stuff is all kind of like diary journals of what I'm experiencing and thinking about in the space. And then when it comes to like Nifty Gateway, it's like, how can I translate that into something that's a little more commercially appetite, you know?
Yeah. So I pulled up your more recent drop, the kickflip piece, and I mean
Mm-hmm.
you're spot on with like the colors and stuff like that. Do you like? I would love to see that physically in a gallery. Maybe have
Yeah, me
somebody
too.
actually do the trick. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
actually like Ollie, like that'd be pretty awesome. Like, do you foresee yourself like making some of these? Like, I mean, these look like neon lights, and so like, do you foresee yourself putting on like a show where like everything is like physical and stuff like that, or like kind of like blending the NFT world with your gallery shows or anything there?
I've thought about it. It's not easy. You can't really do it with real neon. You can do it with LED lights, I think. It's something I'm still playing with, but it's a bit beyond my technical sense. So I gotta like kind of work with somebody. I would love to do a physical version. I think it's really fun. But in my mind, this is something that's like fantastical that isn't really possible to do in real life. Even if you built it in real life, it wouldn't quite look the same as what I have here. And so the idea behind that was kind of playing with, my background in animation. When you're drawing, you use something called onion skinning, where you can see all the different frames layered. And so I kind of created these neon light displays to be the onion skin of the full animation, so that you can see everything before you actually see what's happening. And so I felt like with that one, I kind of played around with rotoscoping and color lines on my super rare pieces like half a year before. And so I kind of wanted to return to that and then bring it into this new style. And so that one was kind of developing the look and the figuring it out. And then it was like, how do I roll this into some more ideas that I think are fun visually with motion and flowing. And so, yeah. And then after that, I was able to kind of take that style and then integrate it with other projects like Dario De Siena's Minds project. I did something for him, Adam Tastic. I was able to kind of roll this style and use it to bring in other artist styles within this media feel. And so that's been a lot of fun to kind of like come up with a new style and then push it as far as I can to see where I can take it. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that one. So it kind of falls in that same timeline. So, where am I going to take it next? That I think we'll see in hopefully a little bit in my next Nifty Gateway drop.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Like I love like the neon. I love like the color scheme. Like we were saying, right? Like it's just all very like fun and playful, and I'm here for it. Like it's definitely something that I'm a big fan of.
Thanks.
Yeah.
No, I think it's always fun with those just to look at the still frames because they're all hand drawn. They're each their own weird freeze frame, and so it was fun kind of building that out. And I did one that was for crypto cubes, and it was like 72 drawings, and it was a really complicated one. I probably went way overboard with it, but I created this really wild sphere piece.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually pull up the audio, so I just want people to. So I pulled up the cat piece. I don't have the title in front of me because I clicked it just to whatever.
I think it's called Swipe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted people to like actually be able to like hear it and like sync it and stuff like that. Like, is that like a very like how is that process between the two of like still versus animated and then like adding in like the correct audio behind it? Like how is that process?
Well, I made the audio myself using light switch clicks, and I just layered them and created the collage of sound. With the cat, I found cat footage that worked with it, and kind of then went through each frame and redrew it in my style, or trying to figure out ways to make it so it flickers more and still shows the motion without necessarily drawing exactly the cat over and over. And so, yeah, I mean, that one's a technically like a callback to a cat piece I had done on Super Rare prior. So it's fun to like I was saying, this is all experimenting, but as I build, to put little things that call back to previous stuff to give more value to older stuff that people collect. And then you can kind of see a lineage of how I got from point A to point B.
Yeah, my hope, which I don't know how much this is like announceable, but like my hope is that we can like start bringing on some of like these pieces from like Maker's Place and stuff like that, because like we're doing like all these listings of OpenSea, but realistically, like it should also work for Maker's Place pieces, so long as the transfer maybe it can go directly to Nifty Gateway. I don't really know. Again, not technically my expertise, but I think that if it's on OpenSea, that we could probably set up a port to be able to like take it in.
Yeah,
I need to copyright that term, the OpenSea port, but yeah.
I love the new integrations that are happening where you're seeing these projects like the robot toes and the other things being a part of the NFT marketplace on Nifty Gateway. I think it's really exciting, and it's gonna make the whole market much more rich.
Yeah.
Not in money terms, but in quality terms of rich.
Yeah.
More variety, I should say. I think it's awesome. I think Nifty Gateway's got some really great stuff on the horizon, and
like honestly, I feel like every time that I've like met up with the team, I'm always just like, we have like really good dev squad. Like they don't get like enough like shout outs and like accolades and everything like that. Like Tommy's forward facing, a lot of the producers are forward facing, and like the devs are like relative to like the community like back end ish, but like they're incredible. You know what I mean? Like the guy, like those guys, like their turnaround times, like quality. Yeah, I cannot give them enough credit, really.
Yeah, I mean, they had to deal with a massive influx of users in the past year too, and they were able to solve a lot of the problems that they were hit with. So, I mean, that says a lot. I mean, it was crazy for a while there.
Yeah.
Their site was getting crashed by just heavy demand.
I came on in like the middle of that, like March 8th, and it was just like, oh God, what is this? And then it like calmed down, and now we're back to like still more manageable, but yeah, like quite a bit more hectic.
Well, I mean, a lot of it was both dev and also changing how drops worked, making it a raffle and other things to alleviate that kind of instant push to always get the first click in, which I think was exciting, but I would say 9 times out of 10 was disappointing because I was never fast enough.
Yeah. So that was like something that for me, like watching everything on like OpenSea happen was like there's so many, like hindsight 2020, right? Like we dropped probably a little bit too much stuff, right? Like we didn't put the brakes on fast enough, and it just kind of like saturated the market. And yeah, I mean we've corrected a lot of like the errors, right? But then like watching like OpenSea, I mean OpenSea has nothing to do with it, right? Like they're just a platform. But like watching
Yeah.
how many profile pictures, and then also like the art blocks, because it's kind of like the same mechanic. It was just like this is destined to like just repeat, because it's too many things too fast. And I think that humans are just like addicted to that. Like I got it, like sneakers apps and right, like hype
Yep.
stuff. Like, and so you just, how much was it? $8,000, and it's like what the hell, like, and that
Yeah.
kind of craziness.
No, I agree. I mean, I think we're hitting a bit of a fatigue right now on the 10,000. I think um, Bored Apes was such a success, and it just bred so much other instant success because everyone wanted to see that replicated. Um, and I think a few projects will shake out and be fine, but we're going to see a lot of people kind of consolidate and decide like which communities are worth growing with. That's what the Bored Apes has. That the art quality is great, but it has a great community, and I think that's what you're going to see is like which communities hold, because that's where the everyone talks about the value, but when it comes to these 10K projects, the value is in the community and the people, and people wanting to be a part of it.
Yeah, it feels like this is like the crypto equivalent of teams. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm a Giants fan. Oh, I like Penguins.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, I'm a Jets fan. Oh, I like Punks. You know what I mean? Like, and it's very much just like, I don't know. Crypto used to be like, oh, I'm Ethereum. Oh, I like Cardano. Like, or like I like Bitcoin. I like Ripple, whatever it was. And like now, like this is like that further delineation of like team and like, I don't know, cults basically.
No, I agree. Well, yeah, there's definitely um, a gang aspect to it. Not in a negative way, but in a grouping way. And people like to show their colors, whether it's their sup ducks or their cool cats. But I find most of them are all very positive. Um, I think it's going to be interesting to see, like I said, like which ones hold long term. I think it's the ones that have creators that are heavily involved with the community. I think, you look at Sup Ducks and Frankie Nines, he's an OG and he's really involved. And this is like his life mission. Like that one's going to survive because he isn't going anywhere. This is his life. And I think, the same can be said for a lot of projects. I think the ones that we'll see struggle are the ones that were kind of like churned out by the same developers that did like 5 other ones. And they're going to be like, well, which one of these is worth us putting all of our effort into?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Do you like? How do you? What do you think happens like overall? Like, do you think like the next step is kind of like rotation back into art? Like, is it going to be DeFi summer? Is it going to be Ethereum killer summer? Like, what do you think is like the uh the 2021 like takeaway? I guess.
Hmm. Well, I think we're going to still see a lot of art. I think, well, we got another Art Blocks Christie's sale coming up, and they're going to have their big event in Marfa, and that's going to create a bunch of Art Blocks hype around it. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, Art Blocks is like hitting a lull, but I imagine it'll pick up very soon. Um, I think you can see Nifty Gateways ramping back up. Its sales are up. Um, you know, in the past month, I've seen a lot of secondary action on there, and so you can sense the being an artist on there, as you probably see it too. You can sense the momentum happening, and I think people are starting to realize, oh, I can go buy an Osinachi for cheap on there, or I could buy this Flickr Fusion pack for cheap compared to what's on OpenSea, because for some reason on OpenSea people charge like 5 times more than what they charge on the Nifty Gateway main site. And so I think you're going to start to see a lot of people filter back. And I think in terms of like artists and one of one art, I always think one of one art's going to be special. Um, I think Super Rare did amazing stuff with their 2.0 launch, and I think that that's going to solidify them always having a bunch of people invested in their success. Um, so I imagine it's going to shift back to art, but I also think realistically it's going to shift into games, um, because that the same communities that like Bored Apes and all this are the same communities that used to be on Discords for games, and um, we're just it's just a matter of time before they start to launch. Right now, the problem is there's a lot of play to earn games that just aren't very fun to play. But once there's like actual really fun games to play that are NFT based, and you can earn and do cool stuff, like it's going to be amazing. And everyone's just gonna, that's like you're not going to spend your time trying to pump and dump all these projects. You're going to spend your time playing games and connecting with people, and that's going to be the real fun.
Yeah. I mean, you see that right now with like Axie, like they have an amazing community like down in the
Hmm.
Philippines. I had talked with like Gultra and like, it's literally changing people's lives. So like even if it is a small amount of money here, like there's entire economies and like villages that are, playing on multiple phones and like making a ton more money rather than like, working strenuous labor jobs. So that's, amazing, right? To me at
Yeah,
least, it's game changing.
I totally agree, and I think that we've yet to see a real translation of like console gaming, whether it's a Fortnite clone that's NFT based, or or a Madden clone that's NFT based. So I think we're still seeing this kind of like mobile app games kind of translating into NFTs, which are fine, but we haven't really seen like AAA games with NFTs yet. Um, so I think in my mind that's going to be where a lot of the people that are doing this type of like heavy flipping will start to move to. And I think through all of these, I forget, maybe it's Bat Soup Yum that made a
Mm-hmm.
chart that was like where all the money goes and trickles down. It all trickles down to one of one art, because that's going to be um, the ultimate flex for collectors. If you can have an original X copy, you know. So I think that's always going to be kind of an end game of getting a punk, getting OG art, etc., or just buying into art in general. I think a lot of people don't fully wrap their minds around the the idea of buying art from artists directly, helping them grow, and then being a part of your own investment growth by helping an artist grow. I think that is such a fun aspect of the space. And the collectors that you see do really well are the ones that do that.
Yeah, yeah. Culture has been like game changing for like quite a few different like smaller artists and stuff like that. Like, yeah, he's definitely kind of like kick started people into the space, which is great to see. I think it shouldn't just be somebody who has the time and establishment from like a money standpoint to be able to like put stuff out, right? Like it's nice to, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's certainly artists. I mean, you got your Nest Graphics, who can put out a Bored Ape thing and it'll instantly sell for like three times more. But a lot of this type of art, it's long-term holds, and that's it's something you get to see grow in front of you. I bought pieces of art from artists in a year ago, and now they're growing into being really big artists in the space, and it's such a rewarding feeling to know that I was a small part of like that trajectory. And I think that's where like the heart of the community really is.
What? How do you? What's your like route for like trying to find people? You just on like Makerspace or Rarible and just kind of like sorting, or like how do you usually find people? Shares on Twitter and stuff, or what?
A lot of it's through people sharing. After you follow a certain amount of people, you find them. Sometimes you can just scour around Foundation and look for artists that have only put out like one or two pieces that are still like kind of undiscovered, and you can get them at a deal. Um, Same with Hickok. There's a lot of undiscovered artists there, and it's a low risk investment that still helps them out monetarily. Uh, it's hard to go spend like one Ethereum and spending $4,000 on an artist that you don't know if they're going to continue to create. It's a lot easier to go spend $20 on an edition and still help them out and still have something cool to show for it. So um, I've only recently started trying to buy more one of one art, but I've always been very into like low edition. And that's why I always liked Nifty Gateway. It's because like Nifty Gateway, I got like 50 or 60 pieces because they're all relatively affordable.
Yeah, I that was definitely something that I was like running into where like I had people pitching me on their artwork, and it's like minimum bid 4 ETH or like what I forget what super rare puts it at. What I forget what the term is. I don't know. They have like a reserve bid, like to kick off the auction,
Yeah.
and I'm
Hmm.
like 4 ETH. I don't have that kind of money. Like, what are you talking to me for? Like, I don't have four
Yeah.
ETH to like throw at something.
Yeah.
Like, and then like at 4 ETH to me, like you start like I have to do like a cost benefit analysis. It's like, okay, do I want like one of you or one of ones, or like I start getting into like the high end territory of like crazy pieces. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like I don't have 4 ETH, dude. Like, I do really like I need to. I definitely need to check out. I don't know how to pronounce that name. You keep saying it. I'm not great with it. I'm gonna call it Hen. I need
Yeah.
to
That's
check
fine.
out Hen. I avoided it the last time by calling it Tezos. I don't know if you noticed, but yeah, but
I think
yeah,
it's Hick et Nunc. Um, but yeah, no, I think that's a good way of looking at it. And it's all relative. Like when I started, I was selling my one of ones on super rare for 1 to 2 Ethereum, which at the time was like $200 to $300, you know? So it's like, when these artists come in and they're like, I want to make $10,000 on my first thing, it's like, I appreciate that you value yourself, but it's kind of, you're really limiting your potential audience when you do that.
yeah, yeah. I think that's exactly where I'm at. Like, I wish I had money for that. I do not. Nifty Gateway is a great job. I am not loaded though.
Yeah. I think it's just a part of when artists that join the space, that they see these headlines of people making $100,000, $1 million on sales, and they think that's the norm, but it's really not. Not 90% of the space is not making huge sales. They're building themselves up and making enough money to get skin in the game that they can go flip other stuff to make money. I know a lot of artists that are making a lot more money flipping NFTs than they are selling their own artwork. And that's just a part of the fun of the space, but you still have to like get that value to play with early on. And that takes a while. It took me 9 months before I had enough money to start like really buying NFTs and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's like a wise take. So we just did like an hour. Went by pretty
Oh wow,
fast. Yeah,
cool.
I have to go look at a house, which I'm very
Oh
blessed. But yeah, I'm doing that. I like to close, or I used to like to close with a nice little tease. Well, I think it's a fun question, which is, what do you think your purpose is in life?
oh boy. Hmm. That's a deep last question.
Yeah,
Um, my my opinion on life in general is that it's all about being remembered in some way, whether it's through the family you raise, the art you create, um, the the people you connect with and influence. I think all we can do as humans on this earth is try to be remembered and hopefully be remembered for good things. And so uh, that's my general purpose, is that I just want to leave a good impression on anybody that comes in contact with me.
you did with me, and you did with the art. So it definitely your persona definitely matched up with the art very well. So it was great to meet you.
Wonderful.
Awesome. I'm gonna cut the stream. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
It was a blast. I had a lot of fun. It's always a good time to talk to people, but yeah, it's particularly interesting to see like the rise from you guys. So yeah, awesome.